episode 165 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. I'm Laura, also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarns, and we have a Ravelry group. And this is my once-a-year favorite guest.
Hi, I'm Liz. I'm Liz FM on Ravelry, and I never know who I am. I think I'm Liz Farley Metzger on Instagram.
I think so.
That's like back in the day we never used to know our own phone numbers, right?
Yes, yes. And as soon as we got like auto dial or particularly on cell phones now. Yeah. And Liz also was the travel correspondent on Come Knit With Us, which sadly they don't seem to be meeting so much anymore.
I haven't seen those guys for ages.
Sam. Anyway, Liz is here for the Christmas holidays. Her family lives in northern Kansas. We usually tape at her house, but today she actually came down to my house. So we are at my dining room table with the Christmas Buffalo-Mew. And so we just thought we would sit and chat for a little while.
Yes, it's very exciting. It's a very cute little house. I'm so envious of all the trees in their yard. They have so much shade when there's sun.
I was going to say, well, not right now, because right now all the leaves are gone off the trees, so it might be a little longer before we have more shade. But so I thought we could talk a little bit about like finished objects or things we want to show off. Tell me about your sweater, first of all.
Yes, this is the surprise project of 2017. It is, my husband called it my Technicolor dream cardigan. It is based on the improv recipe by Karen Templer, and I want you to look this. See, I have show notes like a real podcaster.
And I actually made show notes today just so I would be sure what episode it was, and because Liz, podcaster, shamed me. I was like, what's that? And she's like, my show notes. And I thought, oh.
Well, I'm not, I don't do this all the time.
No, I used to sit down and do show notes before every episode, and all the episodes fit together much better than they do now, where I can't remember what number it is or who wrote the pattern. So today we'll have actual information.
Well, I think you do just fine on your podcast, but see, unlike hers, which are done like on a fountain pen and a lovely notebook, mine is like on a big pen and some notebooks I got out of a Mead paper, spiral notebook.
It's fine. It's notes.
My down market show notes. So this is, I think I said this is the improv recipe by Karen Templer because I live in Phoenix and it's 100 plus degrees 9 months out of the year. So if I want to wear a sweater, it's going to be a cardigan in fingering weight. So there's not a lot of those out there.
No.
So I found this yarn, I think it was last year or the year before, when I came back to Kansas, and I drug my dad down to the yarn barn in Lawrence, which I'm sure everybody's heard of. And this skein of yarn screamed at me from across the stores. It's Vice yarns in the Paradigm base by I don't know who the dyer is, but the color is plain Jane.
Oh, it's perfect.
And I'm like, I have to have that yarn. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I have to have it. It is so Technicolor and wonderful. And so then I thought, well, I don't want to make socks out of it because
they hide in your shoes.
They hide in your shoes, and honestly, I don't hand wash my socks. I'm a bad person. I don't hand wash my socks, and I have found that rather a lot of my indie dyed yarns fades pretty badly.
I just had this discussion with someone, in that I'm leaning a lot more towards the German sock yarns.
Yeah, opals and red, yeah.
Because they are wash and wear, and they knit up easy. And I mean, I still love some, but then I have a million skeins of fingering weight in my stash. But I would almost rather put them in shawls and sweaters.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do quite a bit from now on, just because. I mean, they're lovely to knit with, but then if you wash them a few times, like in the washing machine, like I do, because
they fade a little.
They fade
a little. I mean, I do mine on Delicate. I put them all in like a Delicate's bag, and then I wash them on Delicate. And I actually do air dry mine.
Yeah, I do mine too.
But yeah, who has time to wash them all in the sink?
No.
I used to, but
So I thought, okay, well, I wanted to be able to see this. I don't know if it's showing up all of its colors.
It will.
Quite as
yes.
wild and woolly as it is. But I thought, okay, well, I need to find a yarn that'll go with it to make the rest of the sweater, because there was only the one skein. And so I looked and looked and looked online to try to find a yarn that was basically the same yardage for I think it was maybe even a 150 gram skein. It was a big skein. Look on Ravelry. I don't know. You can look up Vice Paradigm on Ravelry and see what the size of the skein is. But I looked and looked to find a yarn that was basically the same ounces per or grams per yards per gram. And I found some Rowan Superfine Merino, which yay was on clearance.
Woohoo!
So that's what the rest of it is. This is in their 4-ply in marble, which is like a grayish.
Yeah, it's a nice
neutral
gray kind of.
It's really, really soft. I don't know that it'll probably peel like crazy, but it is soft. It's very soft and very, very drapey.
Nice.
But was kind of splitty to knit with, honestly, and it was, I think, in 50 gram balls, and so I had a lot of ends to join, and that was not fun. I'm one of those people like leaves really long tails and then weaves them in a ridiculous amount because I'm afraid everything's just going to completely fall apart.
Disintegrate. You're going to put it on and the whole sweater's going to go.
Just fall apart.
Did you see Amy Beth's Fat Squirrel's latest episode when she talked about only catching the single ply and the long yarn?
I've done that.
Every time she goes to put the sweater on, she's like, it's going to fall apart.
I've done the same thing because I can stockinette. I love stockinette. I like stockinette in the flat even too.
Yeah.
Because I've purled almost as long as I've knit. I learned to knit and purl when I was a little bitty kid, although I couldn't like make things or read patterns. But to me, purling is not really that much different than...
My purling actually, as I've gotten older, I've had to admit that my purling gauge is different than my knitting gauge.
It might be different,
but I think it kind of evens out.
Yeah.
Once I wash and block.
But I don't mind purling. I'm not like one of these people like, oh my god, I have to avoid purling at all costs. And so I will sit and not pay a whole lot of attention to what I'm doing sometimes if I'm not knitting really complicated lace. But so I will do that. I was thinking the same thing when I watched your podcast. I'm like, I'm the queen of I only caught one strand of that yarn, and then
and if I can, I'll drop down and fix it. But
you don't always see it until
then you're blocking it, and you're like,
oops, reinforce it. But so it was knit on US2, which is a 2.75 millimeter. It took me 3 months or something to knit, but I like it, and it has, like I said, it's been the surprise project of 2017 because when I made it, I thought, this is going to be ridiculous. It's going to be wild and totally clown barfy, and it's going to be a ridiculous project. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care. It makes me happy. The yarn makes me happy. The colors made me happy. It made me happy to knit. And God knows we all needed a lot of happy in 2017.
Yes. I was going to say, if you could find something that made you happy in 2017, you should do it.
So I did it, and then I got it done, and I got so many, like, real life compliments, which I almost never get on my knitting. I even wore it to work, and like 3 or 4 of my coworkers came up and said, I love that sweater. Did you knit that sweater? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, that's just great. I'm like, 15 lace shawls.
Right.
Like out the Romy Hill and the boonettes, the fancy drapey lace shawls.
Kitchener uphill both ways in the snow. And they're like,
and there was no word. I made
your rough sweater? Yeah.
They love it.
Perfect.
So that's that project. Do you have any FOs? You have FOs.
I have a couple FOs.
So I have another hat. I have a hat.
This week I was doing, mine are all hats for this week. The first one that I was working on was actually a review. It is the Bijou Basin Himalayan Summit. And I absolutely love this yarn. It's 50% yak and 50% superfine merino. And it's like butter. And I got it, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And I thought maybe I was going to do a cowl. And then I decided I wanted to wear it on my head because I wanted it to be lovely. And I'm going through, we had this discussion earlier too, I'm going through an orange phase where I have lots of orange things that I'm making. But I decided on the colorway turmeric. I had my choice. They offered us a bunch. They have a bunch in like dark. There was like a blackberry looking one. There was a coffee colored one. There was a yellow one. And then there were a bunch of variegated ones too. Yeah, I know, right? She's just going to fondle the yarn. So it's 50% yak down, 50% superfine merino. It's a 3.5 ounce skein, 325 yards. So it's fingering weight.
Oh, yeah.
And it just comes in a slightly smaller skein because it's exotic fibers. And to be honest, I don't remember how much it is. I will be putting up a review this week, and I received it for free, just full disclosure. But I will put the price of what it actually is retail in there. I don't usually their stuff runs, I don't even want to hazard a guess, but it's probably between 30 and 40 a skein because it's got the yak. Anyway, so I chose to knit a hat pattern. This is the Constellate pattern by Hunter Hammerson. And it's got this really cool kind of star stitch in it, which I really enjoyed. I have been calling mine Harvest Moon because it is kind of a harvesty orange color. I really like how the top comes together. She has you, it's a real quick decrease at the top. She has you like do the pattern almost to the top. And so it's a nice beanie, and I love it. It is so cozy and comfy. And one of the pictures I put on my Instagram was I worked on it like Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in my pajamas with the lights around me. It was just like a wonderful project. So I really, and now my hair is going to be crazy. I really enjoyed that. The yarn was pleasurable to knit with. It was just a tiny bit splitty. It is a little bit loosely spun. I think it's just because the fibers are really short staple because it's super fine merino. My guess is in a garment it might pill a little bit, but as a hat it probably will not pill so much, and it will just be pretty. The pattern is written for a variety of sizes and gauges. Because this is fingering weight, I chose to knit it on a US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter. But she basically gives you a workout for a bunch of different stitch counts at a bunch of different gauges. So if you have slightly thicker yarn, you can, she still gives you some ideas. And mostly, I think it's a multiple of 8 that you have to start with. Anyway, so I really enjoyed this yarn. I have been eyeing their site. I have one other skein that I bought when I was at Rhinebeck a year and a half ago, not even quite a year and a half ago, but a little over a year ago. I have another skein of another one of their yarns that's similar but not exactly the same. All of their fibers are like luxury fibers, and I'm gonna need to do something with it because I just can't stop touching it.
You need a hair in.
I know, I have hair in there.
It's gonna halo really pretty. I love that stitch pattern. That is really cool too. Yeah, if you would, it's the gauge won't exactly be windproof, but it'll be really warm. So that's
I'm not too
really
concerned because I mean I don't spend a lot of time.
Well, yeah, you don't have to.
I'm between
dog sled to work.
Right. I'm between the building and my car a lot, so I'm not real concerned about that. But so that is my first finished object, and you stole your dad's hat.
I did.
Poor guy.
Well, he has other hats to wear.
Yeah, I'm sure he's cold today.
No, this is the Fisk hat or fish, which is the designer is Scandinavian. I'm not sure if she's Swedish or Norwegian. Her name is Tora Froseth. Mm-hmm. I'm probably butchering that design, and it's the Fisk, which is fish hat because you can see the ribbing, the
so
cabling
cool.
makes
it's like a fish bones.
Fish bones.
Yeah, very cool.
And I knit a couple of hats. One is the famous side hat.
Yes,
I think I told that
side
story.
Hat. Yes, we told that a few years ago. Beret for the uninitiated.
Yes, the beret that flops on the side.
Yes.
And those are heavier weight, and so this is a fingering weight. I wanted something that would be a lighter weight because it's not. I mean, he's bald, so. Or very nearly, and so he wears a hat all the time, and so I wanted something for not the dead of winter,
right? Not like 0 degrees,
yeah.
8 degrees.
And this is the same way I knit this on a size 2.5,
nice.
Yeah, which is a 3 millimeter, and the yarn is a dyer that's local to me called Sonoran Desert Dyed Fibers. I'm not sure where in In Arizona, she is. But the local yarn store, which is Tempe Yarn and Fiber, that's like 5 minutes from my house, carries her yarns. And she uses all natural dyes from Sonoran desert plants. This particular yarn was dyed with... I didn't write it down. It's black bean and Palo Verde, because I've got 2 or 3 skeins of different colors of this. And this is...
I mean, it looks like almost a sage green, gray. It's
gray,
one of those like nebulous...
Gray-y green.
Yeah.
And it's 100% BFL. So I find anyway that the BFL yarns, sock weight yarns, tend to be a little thinner. Like if it's 100% BFL, it's not as... They're not plump. Most of the bases that people
they don't have the same crimp that the merinos have.
So it's not a... I mean, it's...
Right.
You can kind of see through it. But I wanted something that wasn't too hot because I made him the side hat, which is another cabled hat, and I also made him a Chiefs hat that I did color work, and that was worsted. Right. So those are pretty warm hats, and so I wanted something that he could wear. So this is for your like
30-40 degree day, and it's like barely brisk.
Yeah, but just something to keep the top of his head warm. So he has I don't know if he's even worn it yet. I gave it to him. Mom and Dad's 60th anniversary was the Friday before Christmas. So I think I actually gave it to him that day, although it wasn't meant to be a present.
Well, you had a couple pictures of him where he folded up the back and
he wears
and it's actually kind of a short
the back of his hat.
It's kind of a short hat beanie. Too. It's not.
It's a little beanie. That's what I wanted
it's not like a real long. Yeah. No, super cute. Well, my other hat is, I'm sorry, were you done?
Yes,
I'm
done.
Jumped in. My other hat is, I talked about the pink protest hats, the pussy hats. This is called the Genie pussy hat, Gene, because it's got the DNA cable running through it, which I thought was kind of cool. It's by ChemKnits. It's her like science take on the pussy hat, and I decided that I would do one of these. Basically, I was home at the holidays, and my mom in Los Angeles is getting involved. They're going to do another like anniversary protest march.
Oh, good for them.
And so she had asked, well, I guess I had asked her if she wanted a hat, because she was like, we're going to go do this. And I didn't have time to knit her a hat last year because I didn't really... I don't know. I didn't get that it was going to be as huge as it was.
Yeah.
And so I didn't knit them in time. Anyway, so this one actually is for my sister, because this is Cascade 220 Superwash in the raspberry colorway. And it is worsted weight, and I knit it for my sister. I knit it first so I could see how the pattern worked out. I think it's a smidge on the big side, but I think my sister will be fine. But I'm doing one in fingering weight for my mom because it's Los Angeles, so she won't need much of a hat. And so I'm doing the same pattern. I'm doing the DNA helix on there, and that's a really creative, it's a great little chart. I really like, it is a free pattern on Ravelry. This one I knit, I believe the pattern calls for 6s, and I knit it on 7s, which might also be why it came out a little bit big, but that's what I prefer for my worsted, particularly Cascade 220.
Yeah. Well, I don't like tight hats anyway. I mean, this is a legacy of my brother's like 6'4", and he's the same way. 6'4", size 13 feet, and I don't know what size hat I wear, but a lot of commercial stocking caps and stuff are just they're too tight. And so I go way the other way, and I want one that just sort of sits on the top of my head without being...
Well, and the protest hats are super square up top, so, like, they're super big up top anyway because of the way they fit. Anyway, I mean, I think this one's fine. It's a little big, but I can kind of prop it up like that. Or, or if I want to, I could even pull it down a little bit further and kind of put the ribbing up. So I can do it.
That looks really cute.
Yeah.
You have ears.
I have ears. Anyway, so this is the one for my sister. I didn't actually bring the one for my mom because I cast on for it this week, and I think I've done like 1.5 inches of ribbing, and that's about it. And 2x2 ribbing is not that exciting. Hers is slightly less bright pink than this one, just because I had to go with a different brand of yarn. I'm using Spud and Chloe Fine on that one, and it's in the colorway Sassafras, which to me looks totally like bubblegum. So this is the first one. The second one will come next week. And then I have got to get these out to them so that they'll have them. I don't know exactly when the protest is. I'm assuming it's after the State of the Union. So I'm assuming it's like the 21st, 22nd, like something like that.
Yeah, I haven't heard, but then I haven't been on social media.
Well, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Kansas City is doing something, but it's not going to be as big as Los Angeles. So I haven't heard per se. I should go look though. So that was my other finished object of the week. Otherwise, I cast on some things. So, and you know what? I completely forgot to do tea, but now it'll actually be a little bit cooler. Liz wanted to try, so you're seeing it again.
She talks about it all the time.
This is the Downton Abbey Christmas tea, and she said, "Can we try the Downton Abbey tea?" So we made the Downton Abbey tea, and I pulled out all my Jenny the Potter mugs. So we're having tea. So you'll have to tell me what you think.
That is good. I like that.
Yeah,
I like black tea with like rich spices.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I'm sad because I'm seeing. Not that I know anything, but I'm sure Republic of Tea is going to stop making it after a point in time because it's done now.
Downton Abbey is no longer a thing.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be Star Warsian in length of like 30 years from now. I don't know that you're going to get Downton Abbey tea the way you can still get more Star Wars movies.
Stuff,
So I haven't seen it, so we can't talk about it.
It'll be Downton the Return, you know. Downton 2020, who knows?
Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Earls. Revenge of the Nobles.
They will find a way to drag out anything that's profitable, that's for sure.
I'm sure they will. So, tell me what you're working on.
I am working on, right now I'm arguing with where the yarn is going to go. Do you do this? I put something down and the yarn gets wrapped around. There we go. I have a hoe. These are ho, ho, ho. Although it's not so much ho, ho, ho because this yarn has irritated the ever-loving crap out of me.
I saw your post about that.
I don't know if anybody follows me on Instagram. This is my 2017 Christmas socks. It's the Fish Lips Kiss heel by the socks therapist that I'm sure everybody either knows of it or has tried it or something.
Or has heard other people talk about it.
You have to be living in a hole somewhere.
Yes.
You've never heard of that pattern.
A deep crater.
But it is, and the pattern's fine, and the socks are okay. Although it's not my favorite. I'm not a big orangey red person.
Yeah,
I like my red to be really bluey red, but anyhow, I got this. This is Cascade Yarn Heritage Prints in the number 26 Holidays colorway, and then was supposed to be the toe cuffs and heels. Notice the heel is not, however, in that color, is in Gherkin's Bucket, who's another local dyer. I think I gave you some of her fiber one time.
Yes, and I have a poison green skein of hers that I need to use for something.
It all matches almost perfectly.
Yes.
And I got the yarn actually to make my brother Kansas City Chiefs socks, but that hasn't happened yet because, as I said, he has size 13 feet. And this is a fingering weight, so lately I've been making him sport weight socks. Yeah. But, and I got to the heel and blithely just knit the heel without changing colors.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize it till later. But, onto the annoying part of this yarn. My husband actually wound it for me because he wound up some of my yarn before I came home to visit my dad and brother. And we lost 16 grams to broken plies. Like he kept saying, "What's wrong with this? What's wrong with this?" And I'm like, "Well, the plies are broken." And like 16 grams worth. There I have.
That's a lot.
You saw on Instagram, I posted. Yeah, 84 grams is not. I mean, I don't have dinky feet like some people in the room.
Yeah, I could get away just fine with that, although I would still be annoyed because you paid for the whole skein. You didn't pay for 84 grams.
I didn't pay 84% of the skein of yarn's cost. But so I have like 3 or 4 balls about this big.
Which aren't really good for anything.
Which is like a big marble. Which, yeah, I mean, you can't even really do anything scrappy with them. And you want to weave in all those ends in, yeah. But there was just yard after yard after yard of broken ply, another yard or two, another broken ply, another yard or two, another broken ply, and so I finished this sock, and I have this much left, and so help me if I find more broken plies in this. I mean, if it was, that's a huge size. 16-gram section of broken plies is huge. But hopefully the rest of the skein is okay. If not, I will be even more unhappy with this than I am right now.
Well, yeah, because then you won't be able to have a pair.
But I love, if I do, I will probably just finish it in the Gherkin's bucket, which I love her yarn. She has beautiful colors. Her solids are really tonal, and I said orangey yellow or reds are not my favorite, but that's a really pretty tonal.
I was gonna say it's also just a shade or two. Like it goes really well, but it's just a shade or two kind of deeper and more nuanced than what's in the sock itself.
Yeah, and it's called Saucy, so it's supposed to be like a tomatoey color, and it's got gold stellina in it, which is really pretty.
Ooh, I didn't even notice that. But
I don't know if it's showing up.
A little bit.
But I one of the first, the reason that I always knit a toe-up sock, the first time I knit out of any yarn base, I always knit toe-up and use the fish lips kiss. Although, most of the time I prefer the cuff down traditional heel flap and gusset. But I have a pair of socks that one whole sock and about this much of the other one is one yarn, and then the rest of the toe is a completely different color. So I knit them toe up now the first time I use a base, so I know how tall because I have big feet. I have like 11 and a half, sometimes 12 size feet depending on the shoe. So I never get away with little socks like some people do. So if I run out of yarn, if I run into a bunch of snags, I will just knit the rest of the freaking sock in the Gherkin's bucket, and it will be fine.
I will say, I don't use a ton of yarn for my socks, but most often I knit a second pair of socks with the second half of the yarn. So I do knit it. It's just not all in one pair of socks.
Yes, well, someday you should try a pair of size 13 socks on zeros on fingering weight just to see the soul crushing length.
I was gonna say, because pretty soon my mini me is not gonna be able to share a skein of socks. Yeah. I mean, she's only 4, so I've probably got a couple more years left. But at some point,
or your nephew will end up being a
I guess. Yeah, because usually what I do is I knit my socks however I want, like toe up or top down, whatever floats my boat. I usually divide what's left into 2 and then knit Roxy's toe up so that even if they're shorties, I get enough out of them. So I did a Christmas Eve cast on. They're not Christmas socks, but I did a Christmas Eve cast on like the little bobbins knits. And I cast on.
That was fun watching that hashtag and seeing everybody's song.
Yeah, it was fun. I haven't posted a picture yet because the first day I just did the toe and it was like not very much to look at. But this is the Corriedale that I recently spun. It is called Poisoned Apple, and it is a gosh, I have yarn coming from both sides. That's really It is called Poisoned Apple, and it was some Hello Yarn fiber that I spun. It's Corriedale, which I really like for socks because it's not super soft, but it's not super itchy either. Yeah. I think I told you about this. Corriedale is like a good hardy sock. I think of them as boot socks and a little bit more of the like German sock yarn feeling. So not like super soft, but super sturdy. And then usually my hand spun socks felt a little bit, and that's totally fine with me because the bottoms felt, and so they're just like real sturdy and warm, and I wear them on really cold days. So what I did is I divided the ball into 2. I think it was about like between 3 and 325 yards of roughly a sport weight, and so I used. You're welcome to touch that.
These aren't. I mean, they're not.
No, they're just. It reminds me of
not grabby exactly. It feels like wool. It's a woolly wool.
Yes. I mean, it's just not like a super soft sock. I mean, and I have made super soft socks, but I made a couple pairs in Corriedale, and they wear so well, and I always reach for them on the days when it's like 10 degrees out, which it has been lately. So I, with my hand spun, usually I knit my socks top down. But the reason I do them this way for my hand spun is because I don't want to have any hand spun left over. I'll knit them up to thigh highs if I have to. Although these will probably just be like mid calf. Because usually about 300 yards gets me like decently tall socks, but not like knee socks,
highs, yeah.
right? But on my hand spun only, I always knit toe up because I always want to knit the most I possibly can. And I screwed up, and there's like 2 or 3 grams difference in these balls. So I started with the short one so that I could knit the short one as far as it goes, and then I will just match the second sock to the shorter one.
You can put the leftovers in your mom's.
Yeah, maybe. I'm mostly using superwash in my mom's blanket because I'm afraid of where it might end up. So I am using my US 2.25 millimeters. They're ones from Signature Needles because I usually use those, and I think I'm hoping this is going to work. I need to try this on today because I also need to figure out, I'm using David's toe up sock recipe, which is David Schultz from Southern Cross Fiber, and he basically has a recipe where you calculate what gauge you're knitting at, and using the measurements of your foot, exactly how far you knit and how many stitches you should add and blah blah blah. It's a toe up gusset heel flap, which I find fit me the best. I like the ease of knitting the fish lips kiss heel, but it doesn't fit me as well as the heel flap and gusset. So I usually do this. I have a pair of socks out of Southern Cross Fiber that basically I'm trying to copy is where we're at. And I started with, so normally I knit 60 stitches on a size 0 or 56 on a size 1 to fit my foot, because otherwise they just swim. And I don't like them bulletproof tight, but I don't like them, if they're super loose, then they just rub in my shoes and rub holes in them. So because this is much thicker yarn, I went up to 52 and was like, I think that's probably good. I'll start there. And then the toe was like this wide, and I was like, oh, maybe not. So now I'm at 48 stitches, and I can't decide if this is the gauge I like. I need to try it on because sometimes I knit it too dense and then it's rough on my foot.
Yeah.
So, but long story short, or long story long, this is my progress so far. I think I'm getting close to the point where I would start to think about adding in a gusset because my feet are only like 7 inches long total. So I have to try on, and actually the other thing I thought is I think I'm going to pull out those other socks and measure where I started the gusset on those, and then just copycat the you-know-what out of them.
That works.
So yeah, so that's what I'm working on, and I'm hoping to crank through and get at least the heel put in this week, because then I can because I've been dilly-dallying on trying them on and deciding where to start the heel and all of those things. I haven't done much on them this week, but once I get the heel in and make those decisions, then I'll just rip through the sock and then start the second one and then just hold them up next to each other. And
well, I have those stitch markers.
Right.
That I just count rows now because I'm lazy.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
But it's never the same rows. I'm not like, some people, like I remember Kay on the Bakery Bears.
Always does 60
she knows,
rows.
Yes,
and
it's this many rows, and I'm like,
yeah.
She must be really consistent, because I'm not really
No,
consistent.
I'm not
it's
either. I'm not either. But my thought is that I can get my Christmas Eve cast on done by like mid-January, and I would love to have these done, particularly because, like I said, it's really freaking cold out. We've had a good cold snap, and other than a couple days where it got up to 30 this week, it's been in single and teen digits plus wind chills. So this is the time of year when I want to wear these like big cushy, by the time it gets to 30s and 40s, I'm fine in my regular socks, but like I want my big cushy wool socks to keep me warm on these days.
When it's 1 degree and you have to go outside.
Exactly.
And when you're trying to put air in your tires on them.
Oh my God. That was such my tires lost pressure because it was super cold this week, and I went out to try and put air in them, and I didn't have a tire gauge, and it was like 4 degrees, and I was afraid I was going to do permanent frostbite damage to my fingers. That was
I heard about that on Knit Night.
Yeah, I was like, today's fired. So, what else are you working on? I see something else on your needles.
Well, the one thing I wanted to ask, and maybe some more people have this same thing. Do you ever feel like superwash wool feels like cottony? I was thinking about the contrast between your Corriedale and this Heritage. Mm-hmm. Apparently, I can't find anything nice to say about. I've knit out of Heritage. Like I have a
shawl that I did out of Heritage.
I have a short sleeve cardigan that I've knit out of Heritage, and I don't buy the Heritage silk anymore, because I think it's a short staple silk I knit, well, I tried to knit a shawl for my niece out of that, and just taking it in and out of the bag. Maybe it was the colorway too, because some people say that
some dyes affect things differently than others.
But it looked ratty, like
the cat had drug it through.
Yeah,
like Hildegard had gone at it.
Yes, it looked like Hildegard had been after it, and it was the hair is bright purple because my niece goes to K-State, and so I had this. I knit her a hat out of it, and that was fine. But the silk, I guess because of the short staple of the silk or something, it looked like it had been worn for a couple of years and not taken care of.
Oh.
And it wasn't even done. I wasn't even done knitting it.
And
so
you're like, I
trashed that. But yeah. But so apparently I can't find anything good to say about certain yarns today. But this in particular, the heritage prints, it feels like cotton.
I have had that where wool feels
where
like
the wool
cotton.
feels it feels weird. I'm assuming it's like the superwash process that they take
I assume so.
It's something to do with that. But anyhow, so
yes, I'm
this
curious about
project, this is you should recognize this.
I do.
I call it my not very exploratory shawl because it's of course the exploration station, of which there are like literally 5,000 projects out there. But what charmed me about the exploration station was just the short row section. I love the
the wedges,
the swoopy wedges, and I because as I'll constantly say whenever I'm anywhere talking about knitting, I live in Phoenix. Everybody gets tired of hearing me say that, but literally you can only wear even stuff like this maybe a month or two out of the year. We were in short sleeves outside on Halloween and finding shade to get out of the sun. So I'm like, I wasn't interested really in the brioche section or all the other sections. I just wanted almost as much of a shawl as I could get out of the short row sections. And when you had done, and I've been thinking about this I probably have had this yarn. I think I got it with a gift certificate that I got for my birthday, which my birthday is April Fool's Day. So I think I've had this yarn for probably a year and a half, and had it marked. I bought it specifically.
Right. Well, because if you buy them sort of together the colors that you want. I love the colors.
This is nice yarn. There is a shop in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is part of Phoenix Metro, called Jessica Knits, and they have lovely yarns.
Did they used to be in Los Angeles? I only asked because there was a Jessica Knit. I mean, Jessica was a big name in the 80s, so it's not like I could really... Okay.
I don't know. I think it's gone through a couple of owners, so I don't know.
Okay, never mind.
But when my dear friend, among them, Sam and Kim, and those guys had given me a gift certificate on my birthday. I don't know, maybe it was last year, maybe it was the year before. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. You guys certainly don't care. And so we were up there, and I'm like, well, I want to get... I don't often really splurge on projects because, I am as Amy Beth says, I am a person of size, especially the frontage property. And it takes, as we shall euphemistically call it, it takes a lot of yarn to get over all of me. And I don't like little, I don't knit shawlettes, not for myself.
Neither do I.
Anymore. And so I often don't really splurge on yarns for garments or for big shawls. And so I thought, I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to get some just really luscious yarns, and I'm going to knit this part of an exploration station. And so that's where I got the yarns. I got them all at the same day, and as I planned to put them in this project. And I've sat and waited and waited and waited and waited because I do all this knitting, and so I have like drawers full of knitwear that I never wear. We were talking about this with hats. Yeah. I have drawers full of knitwear that I don't really get to wear very often. And so I think, well, I don't want to knit that yet. I want to wait until, I need it to wear. But then you knit your exploration station. I thought, I'm going to do it. So,
I'll bring that out when you're done so you can see how big mine ended up.
And I'd not known anybody who I could ask, whether it was possible to just... I didn't look that close at the pattern before I bought it.
There were actually
you could
a couple
just
people,
increase do the sweepy sections for as
there is
most
kind
of
of
the
a,
shawl.
now that you've seen the pattern,
Yeah.
there's a rhyme and a reason
Yeah.
to it, so you can just keep going.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to knit until I brought my gram scale. My brother's like, why do you have a gram scale in your
You're like,
luggage,
because I'm
Liz?
measuring herbs.
And I'm like, it's for yarn, and he's like,
Well, you know what's funny? So when I first moved here, I followed my husband here, and I did not have a job. And so after several months, I moved here during 2008, which was when the economy took a dump, and nobody was hiring, and I got kind of desperate because there was nothing going on, and so I steeled myself, and I went to Macy's, which is a local department store, and worked there for the Christmas season. And while I was there, they had a Martha Stewart scale that measures in grams, and it's obviously for cooking, for weighing your flour and your sugar and your
because
whatever
good bakers
else.
do that.
Right. Well, right. And so on one of the days that it was on, it was probably $35 or $40, but on one of the days that like it was on super sale, and then I could stack my employee. Like they had a few days throughout the year where you could stack your employee 40% on top of it. I mean,
On
I got
top
the,
of the Christmas
right. I got the
discount.
scale for like $10. I mean, and I was like, for $10, I'll pay for it.
yeah.
I was like, I don't think I can justify $40 on a scale when I'm making $8 an hour. But for $10, I'm all in. And we've changed the battery once, and it's been like 9 years. So it's a great scale. Anyway, so that was, but everybody was like, oh, are you a baker? And I was like, no.
Well, I didn't finish talking about the yarns.
Oh, yes.
So I figured I'll weigh it after the
Right.
wedges, after a section of wedges, and when I think I don't have enough
Right.
left to do another wedge, I'll just like do plain garter rows or something. I want to use as much as, I want this as big as I can get it. Because, you never can be too big.
I ran out on, so I had a bunch of oversized, like jumbo skeins that were like 525 yards, but then I had one skein that started at 400 yards, and I ran out on wedge 11.
Oh, cool.
And I finished part of wedge 11 with, my dark color was a charcoal gray, so I ran out in the middle of the wedge, and I finished the second half of the wedge in the charcoal gray, and then did like a short border on the whole thing. I'll bring it out and show you.
Okay.
So you can at least get
That much, probably, yeah. So these are some lovely yarns. The green, I don't know if you can see the green, which is in between the colored section, and is what
like
I
a
started
foresty
with.
green.
Is the Ba company yarn, Ba yarns, in its Ba, their platinum base, which is 75 merino, 10 cashmere, 10 silk, and 5 stellina, or some sort of metallic.
If I didn't just make one of these, you wouldn't be leaving this.
I told you I wanted a really luscious one.
Yeah.
And then that's in the lemongrass colorway. And the yellow, the goldy yellow is in the Ba Savannah, which is 10% merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon in the marigold colorway. The purple is Ba Savannah again, 80-10-10 in the lilacs colorway. And then the multicolor is Nanosteel Uruguay, which everybody, if you've ever touched any Nanosteel Uruguay, it's lovely yarn, and that's just 75-25 merino nylon.
I love the Allegria. I've knit with
Allegria, and in the Pindo colorway, which I should look up and see what that means, because I don't speak anything besides English and cat.
I don't understand cat. I gave up years ago. No, that's gorgeous.
But
That's
I really
gorgeous.
like
So
it. It's
that'll
going to
be
be
a
really
fun
bright and colorful and squishy to wrap up in.
Well, and it will be
on the
perfect
few days I need to wrap
Well,
up.
I was gonna say it'll be nice in the winter when it's like just blah out. I guess you guys don't have as much like gray as we do.
No.
But it'll be nice in the winter for that, and then I was gonna say it'll be nice in the fall because it's all fall colors.
Yeah.
So.
Or I think of them as like
Halloween
spring.
colors.
Well, spring color. To me, these are spring colors because of the bulbs. Like my grandma always had.
The yellow tulips and
the jonquils. And the bulb colors again. It was, like I said, it was in April. Which in April in Phoenix is really not spring season. But
it's like 3
I was
degrees
like,
north of hell.
But
Did I say that?
like crocus, yeah, well, that's accurate. Like crocuses and jonquils and that kind of color.
Well, then you should have
I can wear it.
I was going to say you'll have it done by spring.
Yeah, I'll be able to wear it without wrapping it like.
Right. Well, and you can probably wear it like at work if the air's on and some of that kind of stuff.
Yes, my boss's office. I sit outside. Well, I have two bosses. I sit outside one of my boss's offices, and because our building was not built for the room configuration that it has now. At least this is what facilities and maintenance always tells me when I call and tell them it's 54 degrees. And I mean, literally, we put a thermometer in that office, and sometimes it'll be like 50 some degrees and still blowing air conditioned air.
Oh.
So
you could use something at work.
Yeah, it's nice to have when the Arctic blasts are coming out of that office door. Then it's nice to have something to wrap around your shoulders.
Well, so the other whip that I brought is my Opal Advent blanket. And I did a lot of work on this over the holidays because I was off work. I've been averaging a mini every 2 days because they're 65 yards. So by the time I spin and make dinner and do all my other stuff, I have not been getting through. But I got through one a day over Christmas. So I've actually added like 4 or 5 since I last showed the blanket. So it's getting pretty big. And this is, I think, I'm on my 15th mini skein now, so I still have like another 10 to go. So it's going to be a decent lap size blanket. It's crazy colors, and I love it. And it's super soothing to work on, and I have to manage to like count to 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever, but other than that, I don't have to do that much. So it's even good to work on like when I'm hanging out and chatting and podcasting and whatever. And I did actually, so you can see only the last couple days, but I went through and wove in almost all my ends a night recently. So I think I have like 3 sets, only just like the last 3 or 4 sets of ends, and I wove in all the ends on the back. So I guess I finished a mini like maybe 10 minutes before bed, and I was like, well, I'll just wind in a bunch of ends before
yeah, because I don't think you had the ends woven in on when I saw.
I did not.
Wednesday, so
no, I did not. So yeah, so it's doing pretty well, and like I said, I still haven't completely decided what I'm going to do at the end itself. I have a big skein of Opal Sweet and Spicy, so I was thinking I might do a solid one all the way around the outer edge. And then I hadn't decided. I have a skein of kind of a bright, like real citrusy orange, and I thought I might do an I-cord on the outer edge of that because the last one also has some orange in it. So I was just thinking it might give it a nice finished edge. I don't know for sure what I'll do. I mean, it won't curl because it's garter stitch. Yeah. And it's a little, it's like a little wobbly, but I think once I wash it, I don't plan to block it very severely, but I will wash it. And I think once I wash it, it'll lay pretty flat, and it's just going to be something for the couch.
It's happy.
It is happy. It is happy making. And, you know, after all is said and done, so it came in this big like book thing, and I felt a little bit bad because it was kind of wasteful that it was like all this extra cardboard and paper and everything, and I don't know if I'll do it again, but it was super fun this year, and it was like exactly what I wanted and needed this holiday season, and it makes me happy to work on it, and it'll make me happy to look at it. And I may actually be lying because I have this sneaking suspicion that when a certain 4-year-old sees it that I'm going to be buying a kit for next year so I can do a second one for somebody's bed, which means I'll probably be buying a kit the following year to do one for somebody else's bed.
Well, there's your next few Christmases.
I was gonna say if I have a good justification, I would do it. I just don't know that I would do it again for myself. Although I did see a few things. I showed you that one woman on Ravelry made a boxy with her.
Yeah, I like
and I
that.
thought it was going to be like a little too. I thought it was going to look like this, but I guess because it's long thin stripes,
Yeah.
it actually came out really nicely. I saw someone do a find your fade out of hers.
Oh, that would be
So
a good
it's like
idea.
one full shawl. Because to me, like you get all these minis, and you could just do. I saw Teresa. I don't know if you watch her podcast. She's Schnuffled here
I
on.
don't think so.
She's the passionate spinner. She does both knitting and spinning and sewing. I guess all three. She did basically like barn raising squares out of hers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
made I think she did a 6x4 blanket and then was just going to put like something around the outer edge to finish it off. So there were people who did it and kept up with it. As you can see, this will probably take me through January, would be my guess, but that's fine because it's winter, it's cold, it's gray and white out right now. So you guys don't have like a full winter. The leaves fall off most of the trees here, so winter is just really kind of not very colorful.
It's kind of blah.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't bother me to have this going this month. So, which sort of brings me to the end of our knits. I have a knit that I want to show that I'm going to be casting on, and then I have 2 spins, and then I think did you have anything else you wanted to show?
No, I mean, I have the lovely.
Well, you're welcome to show those, but I was, we're getting on.
We're getting there.
I
How
was
long
going
are
to
we
say, I can't tell. I think we're in the 50 minutes range. So my thought was I would kind of finish these out and you can say a few last things and we'll
be done.
Right. So the next knit that I have coming up is for Zen Yarn Gardens. It is a review. And I have used their yarns before. They sent me a sample pack gradient kit earlier this year that I knit into Helen of Curious Handmade. It was a shawl. I'm completely blanking. It was in her last year shawl season, and I can't remember what the name of it was an Aurora. It was Aurora. That's what it was, by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade podcast, or a Curious Handmade, and she does a podcast. Anyway, I used their yarns previously and really liked them. And they are always, then they were promoting their gradient kits. That was probably about 6 months ago. Now they're promoting this new series that they have. I'll show you their tag. I'll show you the 2 tags. Their tag is Zen Yarn Garden. They are a Canadian company, and they do all kinds of sock yarns that are just beautiful. I love their tag. It's a bonsai tree and stuff.
Yeah.
And they are doing what they call magical dye pot. And they decided to create, they have, at least right now, 6 sets of colorways, and they label them A through E, A through F. And within the 6 general, color pots, they do 6 skeins in there, so it's actually a total of 36 skeins. But the deal is that each letter is like colors. So for instance, I chose to pick the C magical dye pot, and I have C1, C3, and C6. And so there are 3 other colorways. They just offered 3 skeins, and I tried to pick the ones that I thought might look best based on what I wanted to do. But basically it is skeins that they've dyed to match with each other. So one that I am missing, this white one has shots of red and pink and purple, and then there is a more purpley, orange, red, blue skein that I'm missing. They had one that was a very solid orange, and then one that was an orange with a lot of brown in it. This is a more, I guess it's not really solid, but it's a semi-solid. It's got the reds and corals in it. And then on the dark end, I picked, this is a brown, but it's got some of the purple and the pink and some of the orange in it. So basically they're pulling color families together. There was one that was blues and greens, but I do a lot of blues and greens. There was one I think that looked a little bit more like the teals, pinks, and purples that I did the other shawl in. So what I decided is I'm going to do a 3-color shawl, and the shawl that I'm going to do is called Love You Baby, and it is by Suzanne Summer. It was done actually for why am I going to blank on the yarn shop name? It's the shop in New Jersey. It's got U in it, EWE. It will be in the show notes. It is the big shop in New Jersey that is basically the flagship for Hedgehog Fibers and Stephen West.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
And I met her at Rhinebeck. I met the woman who owns it at Rhinebeck a couple years ago, and she is quite the card. But she has the premier hedgehog fiber selection in the United States. She's got like a whole wall, and Beata comes over. And then she also does, every time Stephen West comes to the U.S., he usually goes and does a class there, and he stays at her house, and they get together in their pajamas and do photos.
That sounds like fun.
Anyway, it was a shawl that was done for them, and it was like for a while it was a shawl, it was a shop exclusive, and the deal was that you knit it in hedgehog fibers that you purchased from the shop. And so it's a 3-color shawl. It's got brioche. It's got some textures and some wedges. It was not designed by Stephen West, but it's very reminiscent of a lot of the hedgehog stuff that's going on. And I just thought that these 3 would be really nice together. My plan is that in like a bunch of the brioche sections, I mean, I think it's a little bit of like do A and B and A and C and B and C. And I mean, I'm sure it will tell me, but my thought was that these 2 would be really nice in the contrasty sections, and then this would be like a real nice pop against them.
That is, we were talking about this before we turned the camera on. Orange was never a color that I was very fond of when I was younger. Well, because it was the 70s, and if you've seen the 70s shade of orange, they were hideous.
Well, the other thing that makes me laugh about this is, so this is a totally amazing skein of yarn. It's got oranges and reds, and then like maybe a coral pink in here.
It's kind of a blood orangey kind of.
Yeah, well, but it's funny because you just told me you didn't like orangey reds, and we're both like,
it's so pretty. Skein. Well, the dyers now are putting out some. I don't know if you've ever seen any of Gigi made it. Gigi's stuff. Orange is her signature color, and you know, I mean, the dyers are putting out some magnificent oranges. Well,
and I was gonna say, part of what's not fair also is, so you're knitting in like a commercial cascade, and okay, this is me being a snob because I've knit with indie yarn so long. I find that unless they're the heathered or like sort of the textured bases, the cascade colors look very flat to me these days. And so that's kind of a flat color, whereas this has a ton of depth into it because it's really, I mean, this is really, technically it's probably even a variegated, but it's at the very least a very semi-solid tonal.
I really love, especially for like projects like sweaters. I'm with you on, I've knit some flat colored sweaters because I bought the yarn, I'm being able to get the yarn at the same dye lot and the same shade. You know, you knit with what you can get, but heathers are really, if I'm going to do a solid-ish color, if it's not tonal, I really, really love heathers.
Well, and the other thing I've done, and of course your mileage may vary on this, I mostly do it when I knit for kids, is I'll buy a Cascade 220 superwash, you know, kind of a good workhorse yarn, and then I'll stick it in a dye pot with a bunch of Kool-Aid and make it kind of a mottled kettle dyed. But of course with I don't generally dye with the chemical dyes because I don't keep a separate set of pots, and I like being able to do it in my kitchen. Being able to do it in your kitchen with food safe dyes, particularly with Kool-Aid, which is super, super easy because you buy like 4 packets of Kool-Aid to 4 ounces of yarn, and then you just mix your Kool-Aid up in a little warm water and pour it into the pot right under your yarn. And then it just smells like fruity wool. But like, those are going to be bright colors. So I've mostly done those for like baby blankets. I had a pink one that I poured cherry Kool-Aid over, and it kind of made it like pop and look tonal. And then I had like a very pale lilac that I put blue and red on, and so it made it like look all purpley tonal. But so if you like brighter colors, you can get around some of that, but you can't always do that. Anyway,
I had a big batch of like green apple colored lace weight yarn that was like $20 for like 5 skeins. I mean, you know, it's alpaca lace weight. I'm like, well, green apple is not my favorite, so I'm like, I could try to dye it.
Yeah.
Try to dye it and end up with.
Well, you would have to be careful with the alpaca because you really want to be careful. Like for superwash, it's easy.
I don't want a really felted.
You don't want a wad of alpaca. You don't want it to look like it belongs on the alpaca.
Yes.
So
it'll be a great story anyway.
So that's my next. I'll probably wind these up today or tomorrow, and try and start that this week because I'm supposed to post my review on this in January, so that's a lot of knitting. Update on my sweater. I gauge swatched. I did not get gauge, but I liked the swatch. So I haven't cast on for my sweater yet because I have to sit down and do the math, and I didn't have time at my in-laws to do that, and I need to just sit and concentrate and make sure that I'm not going to end up with a sweater that's going to be outrageously big or too tiny. I think what I'm probably going to be able to do, I have to check the other sizes, but it's one of those sweaters that has a bunch of sizes and they're all just a couple inches difference. Like it's not like there's 4 or 5 inches between sizes. Yeah. I want to say there's like a 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. So I think I'm just going to sit down and do the math and probably end up knitting. My gauge is slightly, I was supposed to get 5 3/4 and I got between 5 and 5 1/4. So my guess is if I go down a size or two, I'll probably be able to use those numbers and it won't be a big deal. So really it's just going to delay my start just long enough to figure out, like, I just have to do the ratios and figure out, like, what is my bust going to be at my gauge and which number is that closest to. So, and then the last 2 things I have to show you are, I brought the hand spun that I finished last week because I forgot to bring it. This is Hello Yarn. It is Falkland, and it was called Put Some Cream on It, and it's probably hard to see in this light. It is, it's like a little bit of peachy and pinky and red, and then a bunch of browns and some cream, and it looks to me a little like s'mores or different kinds of chocolate, or
chocolate creams.
Yeah, something like that. And this is up in the shop. I want to say it's about 300 yards. It's squishy. It is certainly next to the skin soft. Mm-hmm. It's nice. It's Falkland, which is a pretty soft. Or it would make really great socks. It's not super wash, but if you don't, I don't tend to care if my hand spun socks felt a little bit on the bottom. I think it just makes them more sturdy. Like, and they don't usually felt on the top. Usually if they're gonna felt, they felt on the bottom or the heel, and I just don't have so much of a problem with that. So my hand spun socks, I do wash them in the washer and then lay them flat to dry. So that's that one, and then I did not wind it off, and part of the reason I didn't wind it off is because, yes, this is the Maiden's Wish that I was working on. It was a nest fiber. It is her Superwash Merino, which is like butter. It's like fluffy, almost Angora-like butter in the way that it like fluffed off as I was spinning it. I actually did not lose very much. It's 4.1 ounces, of what basically was a 4-ish ounce braid. The problem is that I had some problems plying it, and it has a bunch of breaks and a bunch of little coils and things, and so this is not going to go in the shop, which is part of the reason I didn't bother scanning it off for today. It's just not up to my quality standards of what I would want to put in the shop, because it's like 1 or 2 of those I don't worry about, but there was at least half a dozen, and it broke twice, and I just decided, as pretty as this skein is and as much as I would like to send it out in the world, it's going to stay with me. So I may do what my original plan for it was. My original plan when I bought it in the Superwash Merino was I thought it would make a nice hat or accessories for Roxy. And because it's superwash, so my sister she'll throw it in the wash, it'll felt a little bit, it doesn't matter. Because I knit her 1 or 2 other things out of I can only knit for her out of my Superwash hand spun if I don't care if it's going to go in the washing machine, because I don't count on my sister to have to keep that stuff separate. That's just, I mean, she knows how to care for wool, but for the kids, it's just not practical. But my original plan when I bought this was that I thought it would be nice colors, and I thought Roxy might like a hat out of it. So my plan is to basically skein it up, wash it, and maybe knit her a hat for next year.
It's really pretty.
Yeah, it's super pretty. The deal is just that there are like a bunch of little coils and slubs in it, and I will knit around them or cut them out or whatever I want to do with them. I just don't usually like sending skeins into the world like that.
Yeah. So, like some manufacturers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I realize it's not Cascade, but when I send out a skein of hand spun, if there's 1 or 2 little bumps in it, I don't feel too badly because it is handcrafted and because it's pretty easy to work around those. there's like one section where one end got tangled up around another end and it kind of snarled and I had to cut it out and there's a little bump there and I don't feel like that's appropriate. So I will be working on the fiber that I showed last week, which is the snow leopard in Polworth. It's white and then it has like brown and blue spots into it. It's a very wintry fiber. And then I'm going to go back to my stash and look for something super bright and fun to spin after that, because a lot of mine have been like more muted, like fall colors. So I'll look for something fun to spin for the shop.
Some sort of Valentine-y thing.
Yes, and because I know you all were dying to know, I finished the year at 12.6 pounds of fiber spun, which is not the 13 that I usually set out for myself. But given that I had like 2 months where I didn't want to spin at all, I'm thinking it's not too... Usually my goal for the year is 52 4-ounce braids, so basically 4 ounces a week. It balances out because there are weeks that I don't spin, but then like Tour de Fleece, I do nothing but spin. So it kind of balances itself out over the year. The last couple of years, my goal has been 13 pounds and I've gotten to 14 and maybe 15 pounds. I haven't gotten higher than that. And this year I just didn't quite make it, but I'm not going to stress about it because
That's still a lot of spinning. I mean,
yes.
I have never been able to, I'm not multi-craftual because I'm extremely poor at splitting my time and my interest between things. Like I have a sock and then a main project, and sometimes the sock doesn't get worked on for like a couple of weeks.
Well, that's...
And I'm just like, I feel guilty if I'm not making progress on what I'm doing, and so, which is ridiculous. I don't need hand knits. I don't need
you
as
do it
many
to
as
enjoy
I do.
it.
Yes.
So...
But yeah, I just am poor at splitting my time between multiple crafts, and so I always admire people who can spin and feel like, you know, they're accomplishing multiple things.
I will tell you what I do. So when I get home from work, I usually make dinner and we eat, and that gets us to about 7 o'clock. Usually I try and spin about an ounce of fiber, which takes me between an hour and a half. So that gets me to like 8:30. And then I usually stay up till 10 or 11. And so the latter half of the evening, I just knit. And then I take my knitting with me at lunchtimes, and I have knit night once a week. The night that I ply, I don't usually get a lot of knitting done because plying takes me 2 to 3 hours depending on how thin I've spun. But then if I actually spin an ounce a night and ply, that's only 5 nights a week. So then the other 2, I spend time. So where I have found I can't do it is I can't do 3. Like when I was weaving some, I couldn't do it. I cannot keep it going with sewing, although I think I'm gonna try and pull out the machine and make some pajama pants this weekend. But like for sewing, I feel like I need like a Saturday day to sit down and do it, and then I can't do a bunch of other things. So my goals for this weekend are to get these wound and get this cast on, because this is the next big project. Maybe figure out what I'm doing on my sweater, figure out what I'm doing on my sock, even if I don't do it, just so that I know exactly when I'm starting and how many stitches I'm doing and whatever. So those are my goals for the weekend, and I have Monday off, so my quote weekend goals are for 2 more days of weekend.
Yeah, we may be going to a friend of my brother's in Kansas. Well, they're my friends too, but he and my brother went to school together from the time they were in kindergarten. He lives in Kansas City now, and I think we may be going down to their house for January 1st. Let's watch all the football.
Well, but if you're watching football, then take your knitting.
I think I got half a sock done or more.
I was going to say there's plenty of knitting time. If I actually drag out the sewing machine tomorrow, that will take me a good chunk of the day because I'm kind of slow at it, and I need to cut the fabric out, and then I need to actually it's pajama pants, so it's not going to be like rocket science. Yeah. But by the time I get 2 pairs done, it'll take me several hours in the afternoon, but that's okay.
And sewing is, I don't do it because I don't have any place. We live in a 2-story townhouse, and there's just no space to spread out fabric to cut.
This table is what I use.
But sewing to me seems to be like something you could do like maybe once a month or once even every 2 months, because you don't need
Right.
to be producing a garment a week because what are
No,
you going
I
to
mean,
do?
unless you want to make most of your clothes, which I know some people who do.
Unless you're Glenn, who, you know, Spice, do you follow him?
Yes.
Spice Shot on
Yes.
Instagram. If you don't
Well,
follow
he
him and you
hand
like
quilts.
hand quilting, he's like, not only does he
I
hand
was gonna
quilt,
say Kim
he
got
hand
into-
pieces it too.
Yes. I was going to
And
say
so-
Kim sews clothes,
yeah,
and she
sews-
sews quite a
Kim
few
sews
clothes a
clothes.
week, so...
She does.
And if I wanted a full handmade wardrobe, which I kind of do, I just don't have the talent to... I'm not a good sewer. This is like trying to get me to learn. I made those couple skirts, and I have... The deal was I ordered a Craftsy class, which was how to make pajama pants, and they sent me the pattern, and I was going to go out and buy fabric, and my husband, who used to be an SCA, was like, I have a whole bunch of cotton, tartan, plaid fabrics downstairs, and I was like, you do? And he's like, yes, and some of them are flannels, and I was like, okay. So I picked out one, and I was like, do you want a pair? And he said no, and I was like, well, I might as well just make a second. He's had this fabric pretty much since we moved in together, so I was like, well, I might as well just make two pair. Like, while I'm at it, you know, I might as well do two.
It doesn't take any longer. Yeah, see, now that kind of sewing I can do, because I used to be in the SCA too. We lived in Omaha. And Barony Lonely Tower. Callantier.
Woohoo!
Was that where was Wes living here when he was in the SCA?
Yes.
And so I had oh my gosh, I had so much fabric that I gave to my friends when we moved to
Right.
Phoenix, because I was going to be
He
in grad
wasn't
school.
in Callantier. He's in whatever the one. Huh?
Spinning Winds.
Spinning
so
Winds.
that's Callantier. Manhattan, right?
Yeah. Oh, it is Callantier.
So I had lots and lots
Wes
of
is here
fabric that I
too.
gave
He's
away.
been staying quiet, but he's here.
And I could do what one of my friends called slop bucket sewing. I would make the piece T-tunics that are like the medieval
Right.
style. And I could do it. If it didn't involve a pattern, I could do it. But I just
see.
have not drug out the sewing machine for these many years. And I keep thinking about it, and then I think,
I understand. So I guess that's probably gonna wrap it up for us. Thanks for joining us, and it is, while I think about it, it is Saturday, December 30th. That means you have one more day to put in all those gifts that you knit for other people in the finished objects thread in the group. I will be drawing for prizes on January 2nd, and that is the skein of Malbrigo Mecha in the, I don't remember how to pronounce the colorway, but it's a dark purple. And then I also have a skein of Manos del Uruguay Alegria in the Tanat colorway. And I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna do, I have to go see how many people are in there. With stuff, I may do a couple of like pattern PDF prizes there. And then I should announce that January is always the selfish craft along,
Yay.
which is knit, spin. So whatever you want to do, it's something for yourself, because you've just spent time crafting for other people. So pick a project for yourself. I'm going to try and cast on my sweater, and the shawl is also for me. And my hope is that I will finish one. Well, I need to finish this one next month, but my hope is that I will also finish my sweater for myself next month. Not that I'm eligible for prizes. There will be prizes. It will run January 1st through January 31st. Usual rules apply, which is any craft you want. Whips, as long as you do a large portion of the crafting in the month. So I would say 50% or less on your whips is fine. Anything more than that, and I would ask that you do something different. It can be any size. If you do more than one, you can have more than one post. You can have a post for every finished object, and I will draw those probably the first couple days of February.
Exciting.
So until we see you again, I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Happy New Year.